Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We've just had a very useful and rather long meeting with the Confederation of Public Sector Unions. We've come away, at least from the government side, feeling very, very positive about the meetings. We have had some predominantly discussions on the public service reform, as you know, that we had announced some time back, and we made statements in Parliament pertaining to that. In particular, we discussed with the Confederation of Public Sector Unions regarding the job evaluation exercise we want to carry out. We had recently conducted, as has been stated publicly, a benchmarking exercise that is a comparison between the salary rates that are being paid to those employed in the public service compared to those in the private sector. And it does demonstrate from the benchmarking exercise that in many of the instances in the public service, that whilst in some instances the salary is being paid at the intake level in some of the ministries is quite high compared to the private sector. As the years taper off, we tend to pay less compared to what they're getting in the private sector. So obviously, as a choice employer, we believe government needs to become a choice employer, that we need to be able to benchmark ourselves and be able to pay something that's relatively commensurate with what is being paid in the private sector. It is also in our interest to ensure that we do not lose good people from the civil service. If, for example, the terms and conditions, and do not necessarily always include simply the salaries, but if we do not provide the right environment, if we do not, for example, provide the right training and exposure to training and other terms and conditions, then we will lose good civil servants to the public sector, to the private sector, or lose them to multilateral organizations and other organizations that operate both in Fiji and outside of Fiji. So we have proposed that there will now subsequently be a job evaluation exercise that will be carried out, and we have asked the Confederation of Public Sector Unions to participate in the job evaluation exercise. The advertisement will be going out in tomorrow's papers, calling for people who specialize in that area to carry out a job evaluation exercise. And we believe that with the current savings that government has, with the number of positions that are not filled within the public service, that government will be able to afford an improvement in the terms and conditions of the existing members of the Confederation of Public Sector Unions, and also those civil servants who may not necessarily be members of the public sector unions. So overall, we are looking at a improvement in the terms and conditions. Also, what we want to recognize through this exercise is that there are certain civil servants, because of the responsibilities they have, they need to be recognized for that. And the one critical example, for example, as has been shown with the doctors. Recently, as you know, doctors got up to about an 80% pay rise. But within the doctors, not everybody got an 80% pay rise. It depended on the level of risk, the level of training, the level of exposure that they have. And so accordingly, those pay scales were adjusted. Similarly, for example, with the nurses, there's some nurses who are highly qualified, very specialized in areas, whether they're helping doctors with stenting and doing angiograms, etc. They obviously cannot be necessarily treated in the same way as nurses who may be, for example, putting dressings on people's knees. So this exercise will be able to help us differentiate that and be able to recognize civil servants who are high performers also. We look forward to our cooperation with the public sector unions. We have had, like I said, very positive discussions. We believe there have been very positive discussions. In the meeting also, where there were one or two ministries that have some systemic issues that need to be addressed, and we have in particular, would like to single out Ministry of Education, where the Fijian Teachers Association and the Fiji Teachers Union have highlighted some of the issues, and we have agreed to meet up with them next week on Friday at 10 a.m. to be able to address the systemic issues. We've also now agreed to meet up with the Confederation on the 7th of December to take forward our discussions. And we hopefully by that stage will have the job evaluation team in place so they can also be able to talk to them too. We had also discussed with the union representatives the open merit recruitment system that has been rolled out by government. We believe it provides a very fundamental and critical way forward to modernize the civil service and also to appoint people on merit. There are obviously some issues that have been raised by the unions in respect of how it is being implemented in some ministries, more so than others. And that obviously we are quite keen to hear about and to understand about, and how we can remedy some of these practical issues that need to be able to address to ensure that the OMRS, which is a very good system of recruitment and hiring, and also in terms of promotion, can be thoroughly implemented throughout the service. So I'd like to thank once again the members of the different public sector unions who are present here with us. I'd like to also acknowledge Jane Curran, who is the Director of the Civil Service Reform Management Unit, who is working in terms of the reforms that have been carried out, and of course the unions can talk to her in respect of the issues that may arise from the OMRS and various other matters. We've also informed the union about the Public Service Disciplinary Tribunal. The Chief Justice will be appointing the Disciplinary Tribunal as provided for under the Constitution by next week. We've also informed them about the appeal process that can take place through the Public Service Commission in respect of appointments that may be made where persons may feel aggrieved that the proper procedures in the OMRS have not been followed. So there is an appeal mechanism through that too, and the rollout of that will take place in the next few months, with that appeal process being fully implemented from 1st of January of 2017. So I'd like to thank them once again, and perhaps I'd like to pass it on to them to make some comments. Thank you.